and welcome to the 12 Days of Sandy Day 2. Today we're going to be talking about some of my favorite books of the year. So, this is not like my top 5 or anything, or even like these aren't in any specific order. I just picked 5 books that I really loved this year, and I'm going to talk about them with you. One of my videos coming up will be a tier ranking of the books that I read this year. So if you want to find out what my all-time favorite book of the year was, make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for that video because it is coming up and it will be so much fun. Anyway, let's just get into it. So my first book that I want to talk about is Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. I really enjoyed this book. Basically it's following Shakespeare's family. It's about Shakespeare, but you're mostly following his wife and his children, and his name is actually never mentioned in the book, which I thought was so interesting. But yeah, it's basically about his wife and kind of her role in his success and how she took care of their children while he was away writing plays, and about their son Hamnet, who some people say Hamlet was named after, because in that time Hamnet and Hamlet were kind of interchangeable names. It's a really beautiful book. It's very lyrical, just beautifully written, and I really enjoyed it. The next book I want to talk about is Elektra by Jennifer Saint. This book followed 3 different women during the Trojan War, and basically just talked about their different perspectives, and I thought that it was so interesting. I've really been enjoying these like Greek retellings from the perspectives of women, because the Greek myths that we have were all written by men, just because, you know, that is how the culture worked at the time. Not really necessarily a bad thing, but it's just one perspective, and so it's kind of fun to read some retellings of people imagining what it would be like from the women's perspective. So I really enjoyed kind of hearing that from the women's perspective and following 3 different women, because you have different views of the men involved and their views on the war and of their motherhood and their wifehood, which I thought was very interesting. I'm a wife and a stay-at-home mom, and I read this when I was pregnant. I have had my baby since I read it, but it was really interesting to hear about these different perspectives on being pregnant and giving birth, and I would like to reread it now that I have given birth myself, and just kind of see, you know, if I relate to these characters in a different way. But I thought that it was a really cool take on womanhood in ancient Greece. The next book that I want to talk about is Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. I read this one pretty recently, and I absolutely loved it. It was another book that talked a lot about motherhood and the mother and daughter relationship. I have a baby girl, so it was really interesting to hear about somebody else's mother-daughter relationship, and it made me think a lot about, you know, what I want my relationship to be like with my daughter. But basically it is Michelle Zauner, it's a memoir. She's telling you about her relationship with her mom and how she connected to her through food, and that when her mom was diagnosed with cancer, that was one of the main things that she used to cope and to connect with her mom, and then something that she used to cope with her grief after her mom ultimately passes away. And it was so emotional, and I thought that the descriptions of grief were very vivid and very relatable. Yeah, it's an absolutely beautiful book. It definitely made me sad, but it didn't leave me feeling a sadness, so I would definitely recommend it. I think that it is a beautifully written book. The next one that I want to talk about is Gallant by V.E. Schwab. This book is about an orphan girl who basically can see ghosts and interacts with this shadow world, this shadow realm, and she receives a letter at the boarding school that she is at from her uncle saying to come home to their family estate, which is called Gallant, and she goes and she kind of discovers that things are not quite as they seemed in the letter, and she has to do some things to protect herself and protect her family. and I thought this was really cool. It's very like whimsical and mystical, and the magic system isn't really explained super thoroughly, which I really enjoyed, because there's a lot of ambiguity and it leaves a lot up to the reader, which I really liked. I tried to read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab, and I absolutely hated it. So I tried again with this book, and this one is a YA, and I liked it a lot more. Okay, the next book that I want to talk about is Atomic Habits by James Clear. I did mention this in my day one video. If you missed it, go check it out. But I think this is a great book. It's nothing groundbreaking for sure. Like, these things have been talked about for a long time, but I do like the way that James Clear presented them. I think that if you are wanting to build healthy habits and get rid of unhealthy ones, this is a really great way to do it, and it outlines specific steps for you without making you feel dumb or feel overwhelmed, which I really, really liked. So, yeah, I enjoyed reading it. I would like to reread it and annotate it and make more of a plan while I read it, because I think that it's one that you can really take action while reading the book, which is super awesome. So yeah, those are 5 books that I really, really enjoyed this year. Let me know what books you really enjoyed this year in the comments. I would like to learn. I would love some new recommendations, so tell me what you love. Make sure to like this video if you liked it, and subscribe so that you don't miss any more of the 12 Days with Sandy, and we'll see you in the next one for day 3. Bye!
She went away on Christmas Day.